Okay, it's 1 o'clock, so I think we can start. Hi, everybody. Today on the midday download, we'll be discussing how to improve the speed of your primary source verification process without sacrificing data, accuracy, and control. So hello, my name is Warren Chang. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager here at CAQH. Alongside me is James Morey, who's the Senior Manager of Implementation at CAQH. A little bit of background of who we are. So CAQH is a nonprofit alliance of health plan and trade associations. Everyone that you actually see here on the slide sits on the board with us and helps us develop the solutions that we bring out into the market. So right here on the slide, Centene, Aetna, Anthem, a couple of blues, they all come together and address industry pain points, and we help develop the solutions. Some of the challenges that they've brought up to us in terms of the primary source verification side are listed below. Data accuracy, quality concerns, turnaround time, lack of insight into the primary source verification process, problems managing credentialing volume shifts, numerous manual kind of processes, chase work, compliances, and sanctions. Now, for some of you, you guys could be facing all these problems. For others, it just could be a few. The goal here is at CAQH is that we want to be able to alleviate any of them. We can alleviate all of them if you have them. So how do we work? Obviously, the solution is going to be built through our ProView solution. We launched ProView back in 2002, but since then, we've made a bunch of updates to it. So in 2015, we updated our UPD solution to ProView. And from there, a lot of our member plans, regional plans have talked to us about why don't we update so we can actually do the verification. So in 2017, we launched Verified. So a little bit about Verified. First, we're an NCQA certified CVO. 95% of our initial files are completed within 11 to 14 days. Now, that 14-day turnaround time isn't based on a complete file. It's actually based on when you ask us to start running the check. So for a lot of, I believe, CVOs, when you ask them to turn around a file, they'll say, yeah, we have a quick turnaround file, but it's based on a complete file. We'll actually start running the clock the moment you ask us to do the check. On that 14-day turnaround, that's not 14 business days, that's actually 14 days as well, so we'll run through weekends as well. We do have an accuracy rate of about 98.5%, and I'll go through how we get to that rating. Along with the Verified solution, we'll provide insight into the process so you guys are aware of what's happening each step of the way. So again, the solution is built through ProView, and it only makes sense because ProView is well known within the provider community along with the health plan community. We currently house about 1.6 million unique providers in our solution and up to 1,000 participating organizations. Providers regularly reattest, so they come back into our solution every 120 days to reattest to the solution. How the process works and how we can automate it for you. So one of the main things that we need to have is the provider needs to be in ProView for us to do the check. And this is twofold. One, it reduces turnaround time, and the other, it gets rid of a manual process. We find that manual process can slow down turnaround time, but more importantly, can also reduce quality by having manual errors. So the provider needs to be in ProView for us to begin the check. Now, if a provider isn't in ProView, obviously we'll do outreach to get the provider in, but the provider must be in ProView before the Verified solution can begin. Once pulled from ProView, the primary source verification piece, Verified will actually check directly from the application. We automated where we could, so 86% of our primary sources are automatically queried. And this is to make it easier. This is, again, to make it easier to reduce turnaround time and also reduce any manual error checks. Of course, there are some manual checks that we had to put in place just because we couldn't automate. So 14% of those checks, we have a manual team running down and doing those checks as they come up. In terms of workflow, we also have an automated workflow for you so you guys can quickly get to a decision. For each of the data elements that we're checking, we give a content categorization score, kind of an A through Z score for each of the data elements. This is so that if you have a provider that has an all A score, it makes sense that you can just scan it, take it to your medical director, and drop it into your provider data management solution. If you have a provider with all Zs, it may make sense to drop the provider. The goal here is that we want you quickly to get to a decision and enroll your provider, and that's from front to back. Next up is how Verified simplifies the primary source verification process. I'm actually going to pass it over to James so he can discuss this.
All right, thanks for that, Warren. So just to kind of talk a little bit more about the PSV process and where things can be decreased from a health plan standpoint is for health plans responsibilities where they are becoming decreased is because now you're looking to be able to just submit the provider in and be able to say who it is that you want to be able to submit and the type of work that you want to be able to have them process as. The process in between where, as you can see on the bottom row with CAQH responsibilities, that's where we're going to be reaching out to the providers, going to the primary sources to be able to capture the verification information and validate the data within it. Then from our side, that's where we're going to package things up for you so we could put it into a single suite, file format, so that way you don't have to go and chase through other ancillary, either internal or external processes to be able to capture that provider data. So when you receive that package from us, as Warren was talking previously in the slide, you're going to be able to build an internal workflow on your side. So we usually see two different types of organizations where some are fully automating, where taking the categorization information that we provide as part of the outcome, they can build internal workflows where they can determine at a data element level and also categorization level, what providers should be reviewed at an agent or analyst level that they would want to be able to scrutinize before taking in committee, or in some cases if the person has all A categorization or they have valid data elements across everything that was checked, those is what we would define as being clean, and those can go straight to a committee review. From a manual processing standpoint, those organizations who are not overly automating, they still have the same capability. So through our reporting, they're able to get to that kind of same level of information as well, where instead of having to look at each individual file directly, they can be able to see reports that tells them these are the providers based off data elements that they want to be able to look at too as well. So at the end of the day, it helps reduce the amount of responsibility and also that additional work that those teams would normally have to do in order to be able to take something to a committee review. All right, Warren, I'll go and turn things back over to you.
Thank you, James. So some of the hurdles that we hear, so, being on the business development side, I talk to quite a bit of plans each time we demonstrate our verified solution. One of the main hurdles we hear is about credentialing volume shifts. If you take a look at the graph, you can see that kind of that monthly volume isn't always consistent. Certain months you kind of have peaks and flows, and then all of a sudden you can have a huge spike in volume in terms of credentialing files. Another issue that becomes into play is your credentialing teams. The credentialing team that you have today sometimes isn't going to look the same 6 months from now, a year from now. And there's a number of reasons for that, right? Some people leave, some people get promoted, some people kind of change career paths. When that happens, that doesn't mean the work stops. Obviously, we're working kind of in a new time right now. I'm currently working from home, and I'm assuming your credentialing teams may be working from home. And you know what? In these kind of strange times, buildups can happen, backlogs can happen, and credentialing files can add up. At that point, CAQH is happy to kind of take on any overflow that you may be managing right now. The beauty about it is you can almost use this almost like a water fountain, right? So when you guys need us to send us files, great, send us some files. And it's kind of it becomes to a point where you guys can handle it, manage it inside your house, great, you guys can keep it in-house. We do have certain plans right now that just send us overflows. So for the month of January through March, we may see very little from them. And all of a sudden we can see a huge spike, so up to thousands of files that can run to us. The goal here is you can trust CAQH to kind of take on that volume when needed and then pull back if that's what you would like as well. We've also worked with other health plans that need to meet like a certain quota. Sometimes they have like 1,000 a month file quota or 500 files a month quota. And what they do is they'll actually half it off. So they say, CAQH, you'll take 50% and our in-house team will take 50%. Our other CVO will take 50%. Whatever it may be the process that you guys have, CAQH can kind of meet you where you guys need to be met. You can count on us because obviously we're running it from the ProView application. So the quality and turnaround time is going to be quick and accurate. Next up is chase work. So I think, a big portion of kind of a pain point for the teams is chasing down a provider, right? Chasing down a provider, getting them to complete an application, getting a provider to kind of add additional information in or files or other files that need to be uploaded. And that's where CAQH can come in as well. The ProView application, obviously, if a provider is incomplete, we'll do outreach as well. But the verified team will do outreach as well. We'll send emails, we'll make phone calls. And this is so that you guys can kind of offload that work to us. Chase work is a painful process. And because the provider is so engaged with the CAQH name, we do get a lot of feedback on getting the provider's information in. Finally, our bundled pricing. So this is going to be kind of unique to CAQH and something that I'd like to share as well. So currently, as you guys are kind of doing your primary source verification, there's typical fees that come on play. MPDB, I believe, is $2 per check. And there's additional checks, right? AMA, ABMS, National Student Clearinghouse. They're all going to be included within our verified fee. So the verified fee that you get from us is just that. It's going to include all the fees to access the primary sources. Next, what's it also going to include is the ProView data. So currently, if you guys are managing your credentialing right now and you're managing your roster, you're probably being billed $5.28 per provider per year. If you run those checks through our verified solution, we'll waive the provider fee for 3 years. So if I'm Dr. Warren Chang and I'm being run as an initial file, we'll waive that provider fee for 3 years. And when you want to run a recred on me again in 3 years, I'll be waived another 3 years. So essentially, you wouldn't pay any provider fees if you run it through our verified solution. You guys can do the math on your own roster and kind of see what you guys are being billed, but that can add up quite a bit. Also, any outreach via phone and email is also going to be included as well. Okay, next is going to be how verified can be implemented in 3 weeks or less. So I'm actually going to pass this over to James and he can share from there.
All right, thanks for that, Warren. All right, so again, we're going to talk about the standard implementation timeframe that we currently have today with a verified solution. Then we're going to transition into how is it that we can do a more aggressive timeline to be able to implement for organizations. So in our current timeline that we have in front of us, this is what we would typically use as part of our go live with a new organization, where the goal is to be able to implement someone from the moment that we do a kickoff as part of the beginning of the contracting to the point where they begin to go live is typically within a 45 days or less in most cases for organizations. And of course, this can also extend out depending on the back and forth and the time a health plan might need to be able to build things out. One of the things that you'll see is the plan is staggered to allow more time for organizations, again, to build out more internal processes to be able to accept verified data. This process also allows time for automation build. So a lot of groups will look at the implementation and go, okay, I want to be able to build automation out of the gate. And in those cases, that can always delay things if they want to be able to do that. Within the new view that we're going to be looking at, this is going to be where we are going to be truncating the timeline. So instead of having to do a staggering approach, we're going to run a lot of these processes in parallel to be able to give us a faster implementation. So for an example, from a training and the submission standpoint, that can all occur at the same time. We have a lot of discussions with groups that at times, if they have backlogs, in terms of them transitioning from either internal or an outside vendor into CAQH, that they don't want to lose any times in between and they want to be able to start that work right away. We could take the same approach for all organizations as Warren was saying about for spillover volume that you want to be able to accommodate that, we can do the same exact thing. So the benefit of doing more of this kind of truncated time frame is, one, you can start right away as you go through the training process, and there will be a lot of assistance from CAQH because as we are training you to be able to educate you in the process and how to interpret the data, we can be able to help take that heavy lift in the beginning to be able to start getting that submission. So during that time period, what's great about this is that, one, you can go live pretty much right out of the gate. The second part is as you go through training and you start looking at the materials, you're looking at live content that'll help you kind of get a better feel for the data and how you can use it internally on your side. If there is a need to be able to do an automation build later on, perfectly fine. That's still covered as part of your implementation process. So, today, if you want to be able to quickly start right away and be able to look at things manually, that's what we can take advantage of. From an automation, if you want to be able to do that later on, we would just pull that in at a later time when you and your organization are ready to be able to pursue that. So overall, just kind of end off with the implementation timelines. The benefits that you will actually see as part of that is, one, you're going to get a quicker start date for submitting and receiving files. So again, pretty much right out of the gate, as soon as we're ready to do the kickoff, we can start taking on that work for you. The second part is CAQH assisting you during the submission process and along those routes to be able to, one, take the burden off of you as part of the implementation to be able to get the work in, so that way you can concentrate on training as well as receiving the data from us, then finishing out the training as part of that, then look at automation at a later point. All right, Warren, I'm going to go and turn it back over to you.
Okay, summary. Can we get to the next slide, please? Okay. So again, I think what we want to discuss here is that when using Verified, there's a lot that our clients can kind of depend on. I think the majority of our clients have experienced an error rate of less than 1%. And as James just mentioned, we can definitely compress the enrollment time frame to meet your needs. We can move pretty much as fast as the plan needs to go. Because of the reduced data entry and manual effort, that's going to help turn around the files very quickly and also keep it at high quality. I think the cost reduction is going to be a big pain point. A big pain point that can be lifted from your side, because right now, kind of everything's up in the air. And for CAQH and for Verified to run these files, we're going to waive the provider fees for 3 years. There is no pass through. And if you guys just want to use this on a basis of, a couple files or 100 files a month here and 1,000 files here, you guys can use this as needed. Another thing that we are doing is we're monitoring sanctions monitoring through our sanctions track solution. So we'll monitor state licensing boards, OPM and OIG, Medicare, Medicaid exclusions, and SAM to help track down sanctions on your providers. The Verified solution is great because it's run from ProView. You guys can just, instead of gathering the applications from ProView side and running the checks yourself, we can check it directly from the application. And that's why it makes sense. Next slide, please. Okay, questions. One more slide. So thank you guys for jumping on. If you guys have any questions right now, now is time to ask. Again, on the right-hand side, questions about CAQH can be directed to CAQH via the question panel on the right side. So I think we got a question about cost. So I'll take that, James. So when it comes to cost, it's dependent on a couple things. So it's dependent on volume and it's dependent on your size. So what I can do is, if you guys would like, when you see my email at the end, please email me and we can set up a call to actually just go through and talk about the cost. We can go and kind of get it down to what you guys need and figure out what the costs are. Next question is on what guidelines do you guys follow? So we follow the standard NCQA and Medicare Advantage requirements. Currently, we're checking license to practice, DEA and CDS certs, education training, board certs, work history, NPDB malpractice history, NPDB license sanctions, NPDB Medicare and Medicaid sanctions, hospital privileges, current malpractice, current attestation disclosure questions, OIG sanctions check, SAM sanctions check, and Medicare opt-out check. Okay, James.
Yep. So I just received a question about, should we submit credentialing volume now or load as we go? So that's a very common question that we do see a lot of times with organizations, especially if they're looking to be able to, do volume, or they have providers that they need to be able to process over the next 3 years. So from a best practice standpoint, we always recommend that you want to be able to future load those providers into Verified. So as Warren was explaining earlier, is one, you get access into the ProView data during that time that you're not going to have to be able to pay for, and it also helps reduce a lot of the administrative burden that you would normally see within an organization. So you can imagine where if organizations are having to constantly keep submitting, those reappointment volumes throughout, the multiple years, that's going to take more time. So a lot of organizations will already have that information readily available to them. And during implementation, we would assist you in getting that volume submitted in. So that way, one, you don't have to do it yourself. And two, you just manage the updates at that point. So if providers are leaving your organization, those would be the only submissions that you would want to be able to submit it to us. But it really does help relieve a lot of the administrative burden that you normally see as part of that maintaining. Another question that I just saw come through is around the 11 to 14 day turnaround time that we're averaging. Looks like the question is, is it always going to be delivered between 11 and 14 days, or could it be sooner than that? So just kind of answer that one. It's turnaround time for our provider record can be quicker than the 11 and 14-day turnaround. What you see as part of that average for the initial credentialing is a lot of that could be communication between us and the provider. So as we're looking at the profiles and we're capturing data as part of that, and we see things that either one, the provider needs to address, or two, maybe we just need clarification on that in order to be able to change categorization on a data element. That's where a lot of back and forth will happen between us and the provider. So if we're able to capture that, within the first contact, we're going to be able to complete that file and we can deliver to you right away. We're not going to hold it any longer than what we need to on our side. So we do see it where we can see files that can be delivered within 4 to 5 calendar days, depending on the provider profile and as if they're responding back to us in a quick manner.
Okay, I actually got one, James. Question was, how are the outputs handled? The file outputs are going to be a machine-readable JSON file along with a human-readable PDF. You'll be able to log in through an SFTP site and kind of pull down the information. And from there, we'll provide kind of all the detailed documents that you guys need. Is ongoing monitoring monthly? So our ongoing monitoring of sanctions is I believe it's run every 2 weeks. We have a team that goes out consistently and runs these checks. So they're going to be monitoring the state licensing boards, OPM and OIG, Medicare, Medicaid solutions, and SAM. And again, that's on the sanctions track solution. Okay.
All right, there was a question about, I think it was for work history gaps. Let's see. The question was, what is the standard for work history? We require gaps of 90 days or greater explained since professional school graduation. So for our work history, what we're looking for in terms of categorization, we're confirming 5-year work history with no gaps. In some cases, with the categorization, depending on what is found as part of that, we can change the categorization from our side. So for that question, we'll pull some more information together on that, so that way you can see exactly how that works. But the goal from our end is, as we're identifying gaps, that we're getting confirmation around that from the provider themselves, just to be able to also document in as part of the profile that would go back to you.
I got a question about how to submit. So this would actually be similar to ProView. You guys would roster pretty much the same way you guys would roster in ProView, and then you guys could work with our implementation manager, James, and help you kind of get the files in and submit. There's kind of a lot of hand-holding in the beginning, so there's a bunch of training sessions to get you guys up and running, but it's really quite simple. Since it's run from the ProView side, there isn't much of a change to get the files in.
Okay, there was another question about, do you have a platform that we can automate access to? So with the way that Verified works, that's in addition to the ProView system that you would have access to today. So through ProView, you would be able to access the provider results. You would also be able to access the application information. If at the user level, so say for an example, you have auditors, or if you have team members that are working remote, the ProView portal itself is secure for them to be able to go and be able to get access into those details. If you are building automation where you want to be able to pull information into your provider network system, as we're delivering reports as well as the provider files themselves, those are going to be made available through an SCTP website that you would have access into as part of your ProView access, where you can set up those type of scheduled automated jobs on your side to be able to go and access that information. There's also going to be reporting that will allow you to be able to help audit and reconcile providers that are being delivered to you, so that way you can build that in as part of your checks and balances process.
Okay, I got a question on HDO providers. So that's a question that I have to take back to our kind of credentialing specialist, unless James, you know this answer, but we just got this question about HDOs. I will provide the answer for you and email you back that question. Okay, folks, really appreciate you guys jumping on the call today. Hopefully we're able to answer the majority of your questions. If not, here's our information below. Again, my name is Warren Chang. I'm with CAQH as a sales manager, senior sales manager here. If you have any questions, please email me at wchang@caqh.org, and I'll help you kind of answer and kind of do any follow-up. There are some questions that I do have some follow-ups with, so I'll be sure to reach out to you individually. Alongside me, thank you again, James, for jumping on the call. Senior Manager at Implementation, so his email is right there as well, jmaury@caqh.org. For anybody that wants to see a more detailed demo, actually kind of jump in and, kind of have a one-on-one demo with myself, please do email me. Happy to set something up, talk you through it, and then show you how the solution works. And, obviously CAQH has a bunch of other solutions that's built from ProView. So if you guys are interested in learning more of our delegated groups credentialing solution, direct assure, or anything else, we're happy to kind of talk through it. Again, this call is being recorded. We'll share it after the call, but really appreciate everybody jumping on, and thank you so much.